Hi everyone. So in today's episode we speak to the lovely Kim Mortimer. Since 2017, Kim has been head coach at Stratford Sharks Swimming Club. Having been a competitive swimmer herself, she found her love of swimming, which eventually led her to coaching. She's got a passion for getting the best out of people, which may explain why Kim actually became a PE and PSHE secondary school teacher initially. However, her love of swimming prevailed, and between 2015 and 2016, she volunteered as a coach on the Loughborough Fast Swimming programme, which is where she also gained her MSc. Since then, she's been head coach of the Warwickshire County programme in 2019 and 2020, and also head coach of the ESSA West Midlands team in 2020, having been on these teams previously as a skills coach. Today, we talk to Kim about these roles and how it's a great way of creating links, how she builds an atmosphere in the club in which her athletes can thrive in, her time with Armiger, our former coach, as her mentor, and how it is being a female coach in what is currently a fairly male-dominated career and the advantages that she sees from this. We also talk to her about her coaching philosophies as she guides her swimmers back into the water after lockdown. Thank you for listening, guys. Thanks to Kim for speaking with us, and we really hope you enjoy the episode. So, hi everyone. Hi Kim, how are you?
Hi, yeah, I'm good. How are you guys?
Really well, thank you.
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Nice sunny.
Yeah, no probs. Thank you for asking me.
You're very, very welcome. So, Kim, swimming. Why swimming? How did you get into it? Like, how did you end up here being head coach of Sharks?
So I think obviously I'm going to be saying a bit about me, and I'm sure a lot of people know that already. So sorry if I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think for me, coaching's always been there. Like I started coaching when I was 16, and I did it throughout all my degrees, like at Worcester. So I did it through my undergrads and I did it through my PGCE. And then when I ended up going into teaching full time, which I did for about 8 years, it was kind of still there. And it's kind of, because I used to swim myself, so it was kind of like that easy transition just to kind of come from, you know, a swimmer to coaching. And I guess I kind of went up the ranks in the club, you know, junior coach, senior coach, stuff like that. Yeah. And I was coming up to the grand age of 30, and I know, right? And I kind of needed to make a change, like in my life. Had always wanted to do my master's degree, like since I finished my PGCE, and it was kind of always there. And I thought, right, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I kind of made a really big decision of like giving up my full-time job as a teacher. Yeah. And thinking back now, it was probably quite a radical thing to do, but it was one of those things, it was just something I had to do. So ended up doing my MSc at Loughborough, because that's where I wanted to go, kind of learning from the best and kind of being able to necessarily get in that kind of Loughborough swim program that you guys were in. And then I obviously completed that in the year, and then the position of head coach came up when the previous head coach had applied for a different job and got that job. And it was kind of just an easy transition really to say, right, I'll give this a go. And my thought process was only to give it a go for a year. And obviously I'm there probably 4 years down the line now. I know. So yeah, that's kind of how I kind of got into it, and obviously the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, definitely. So you're obviously enjoying it, and like, you know, to be there a lot longer than what you thought you were going to be.
Yeah, I think I know we're going to have a talk a little bit later about other bits and bobs, but I think when you kind of go into a program and you become in a position of a kind of leadership position, it does take you a bit of time to kind of change the culture. And I think in my thought process, I was like, oh, it'll take me a year to change the culture, it'll be fine. And it took a lot longer than that. And I think when we started getting results and, you know, we started becoming a bit more of a presence on poolside at open meets and things like that, it kind of just kind of carried on from there, really. And then, yeah, obviously 4 years down the line, still there at the moment. So not in the pool, obviously, hopefully by the weekend. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, like you say, it's culture, isn't it? And you want, as a head coach, I guess you want to create a culture that you think everyone's going to thrive in. And, you know, that does take a bit of time. It takes time to learn about each individual swimmer. No one's the same, they're not all robots, you know, and what makes them tick, to really get the best out of them. And then to do that as a club, as a whole group, like you say, it can take a bit of time, and it's a really nice kind of, I don't know, challenge in a way, I guess, to take on. And I find that quite enjoyable, I think. But I mean, you've done lots of different things, and like recently you've been, let me just get this right, so head coach for the County Pathway team in 2019, and also head coach of the West Midlands team for the English Schools Association in 2020. So can you tell us a little bit about those roles, sort of like how you got into those, and what's it like kind of being in that network of coaches within those? Is that something that really helps you enjoy, or how do you
so the head coach of the county, so it hasn't been running for very long. I believe it's been like 4 years possibly. I'm sure somebody will correct me with that date, but so potentially how it works is you have the same head coach of the county for 2 years, and you have to apply for it, and then from that point you get accepted, and that's kind of what I did. I got approached to put my name forward, and I think a lot of it probably was because of what I was doing with the club and being more present on poolside and getting kind of medals through open meets and things like that. And what happened was obviously got on that, and it's a really good kind of program because it's around the county. You have 36 swimmers that are selected from your county for us Warwickshire. Obviously we did get that selection because we did have our county championships before the lockdown, so we were very fortunate. So this year, obviously I'm head coach this year as well, but it hasn't necessarily gone the way it should have done normally, and it'll be slightly different as well, but potentially that's kind of how it works. And then you have the opportunity for skill coaches to apply for the positions. So it's a role where as head coach you are obviously advising parents and the swimmers, and also supporting those skill coaches to develop themselves. And it's on a program through Swim England that you have to follow, and it's really good because I think even for me, because I don't know everything, but it might be that somebody brings in some other ideas and does something slightly different that you can learn from as well. And it's really great because when you're on poolside at different meets, I mean, I've done it before where you talk to other swimmers from different clubs, you know, and you actually get to know a bit of a bond with them as well, and they come up and tell you how they're doing and things, and it just allows you to be a bit more kind of open and just learn a bit more as kind of as the program goes. It's only 3 sessions, and it's April, June and September, and there's just a range of things like nutrition, lifestyle, like skill-based work, and just gets you ready for if you are to go in the next like regional camp or whatever it is really. So that's kind of how I kind of got into that position. And the head of the ESSAs was quite a surprise really. I just got approached by that. I just got an email saying, did you want to do it? And I said, yeah, why not? Wasn't entirely sure what it was about, but you know, I thought I'll learn as I go. And it was absolutely brilliant. It was so Neil is kind of a team manager, and he kind of selects the teams mainly on, again, results and British rankings. And it was just so great to see swimmers that have been to Europeans and other things, you know, quite, you know, British champs and stuff like that. So it was a very mix of swimmers. And again, you get to work with different coaches. So I got to work with Jess from City of Coventry, and, you know, we just worked as a team on poolside. That one was slightly different because a lot of the swimmers we only literally met the day before, like we didn't know them. It was a very different setup because obviously you have to be a little bit careful on what feedback you give the swimmers, even though they're not your swimmers, because you don't want to be disrespectful to their home coaches or anything like that. And it was really nice because we kind of did it a bit more talking to the swimmer and saying, right, what did you think? How do you think that went? You know, what would your home coach say? And they were just fantastic. And I have put my name down for next year, but I don't know if I'm allowed to do it again, because I think it's only one head coach for 1 year. But hopefully Neil will hear this, and then he'll go, oh yeah, we'll get Kim back on board. But yeah, so basically that's what it is on that one. So
Brilliant.
so I'm really, really grateful for actually both opportunities, really, to kind of just mentor coaches, because I love doing that. So
Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah, it sounds
fantastic.
like you had some good opportunities there, nice experiences of doing it.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good. Took quite a bit away.
Like you say, it's a bit like about the community as well. You'd end up speaking to customers that weren't from your club on pool
Absolutely.
and things, and just having a chat. And I think it is sometimes, obviously it's a competitive thing, it is sport, but you've got to have that kind of community feel. At the end of the day, everyone's goal is the same. They want to get faster, they want to get better. So if we can all help each other kind of do that a little bit, great. Like, I don't see the problem in doing that. And I know sometimes people feel a little bit awkward, but I think it's a great idea to do that.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely like thinking it as a team, you know. And obviously when I went up to the ESSAs, I didn't know, obviously I knew some of the swimmers, but not predominantly all of them, but they were just fantastic, like great team effort. And a funny story, actually, we got lost, so it took us 7 hours to get up there. We were the last team up there, even though we are not the closest, because it was in Sheffield. So that was quite nice, walking on poolside in your bright orange t-shirts and jumpers. Everybody can see you. We couldn't really get away from that, but you know, they did absolutely fantastic. And yeah, it was that very much kind of that team effort. Everyone's working together, everyone's pulling in to just kind of work within themselves. And I think it's really important that, you know, as you say, everyone's got the same, you know, the same drive, and you know, it is a team effort as well as an individual sport. There also needs to be that team element as well.
Yeah. Oh, very good. It seems like obviously that sort of mentality you've got, sort of being open-minded and learning from other people, you've taken into Sharks. Like, we know obviously, like, we can come and work with you guys a few different times, been away with you and to Croatia and things, and you also
have
Ian who's obviously our old coach, and he was what was his role, like mentor for like a year or something? Is that
yes
yeah
so
Ian.
I know, I did learn a lot from Ian, definitely. So I was very fortunate that I obviously got into Loughborough to do my MSc, and I approached Loughborough Fast Swimming to say, like, could I do a bit of hours with them? And I met Ian on kind of the first day, and absolutely just fantastic guy. And I started working with him kind of twice a week during my MSc. So I'd already kind of built that bond up with him. I'd already kind of learned how he did things. And I think it was leading up to Rio, actually, that I kind of helped with that. And that was an amazing experience to kind of see how that went. And when I became head coach, because I hadn't been in a leadership or management role prior to head coach, my trustees thought they wanted to give me a bit of support and potentially, you know, offer me a mentor for whether it was for 6 months or a month or a year, whatever it was. And straight away I was like, you need Ian, that's who you need. And I wouldn't say it gave, you know, I wouldn't say it was like a bit of persuasion, but I think because, like, we all know him and we know what he's like, and I think it was trying to explain to them, like, what he could bring to, like, myself and the other coaches and the swimmers and the club. And I think when they met him, they could definitely see where I was coming from. And because he'd also mentored Bradford, and he'd actually done kind of brought a program up already, that really much helped. So he came on for a year. He was known as our technical advisor, and we kind of just started again. So we had to kind of put, you know, certain things in place to get going, and just try and refocus the club a little bit. And I remember one of the meetings that he said, talking about culture, actually, Amy, a minute ago, he said to me, he's like, do you know what, to change this culture, it's going to take you about 2 or 3 years. And I was like, no, it won't. And do you know what, he was absolutely right. It does take that long to kind of get a culture back. But he was brilliant, and he kind of helped me get my confidence back a bit, I think, because prior to that, I'd kind of lost it a little bit for various things. And when I had gone to Loughborough, he'd I don't know if you were swimming in the time, actually, Joe, on the Wednesday nights, but he kind of just left me to coach you guys, which I was a bit like, what? You just left me with like world-class swimmers, Olympic swimmers here, you can't do this. And you say, yeah, well, okay, bye. And I think I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I think, you know, it definitely builds your confidence very quickly when you're put in that situation. So he was just a really great support for me and a really good guidance person to just, I think, try and remind me that the stuff that I was going through happens everywhere, like in every club, with every coach, you know. And I think that was one important thing that was apparent for me, that when I'd call him up and say, look, I've got this problem, you know, a bit stressed about it, he would say, do you know what, this coach has also got this problem as well, you're not the only person. And it was quite nice to have that outside of your kind of your club to remind you that you're not going, you know, you're not the only person going through it, basically. So he was really helpful, and he's still, you know, he still chats and catches up and stuff like that. And if I need any advice, you know, he's still there, which is fantastic. So
brilliant. That's really, really cool of the swimming club as well, because I don't seem to see that very often in clubs. I don't see the coach gets a mentor or a technical advisor to come in too often. Is that common in swimming, would you say, or not?
Yeah, I don't necessarily, I think you're right. I don't think it's something that is done enough sometimes, because I think when you're put into a head coach role, it's your kind of, your whole role changes, because as well as just being a coach, you've got to be a manager, you've got to know your finances. It becomes a bit more of a business rather than a club. And I think having somebody there as a mentor is just such a, like, just having that support is so helpful. But I think generally I don't see it that much, and I'm forever grateful for the club for allowing that to happen, because I think that's probably why I'm still in the position I am today, because I've had that support. If Ian was, you know, wasn't around to support me, then I don't know, you know, what would happen really. But I don't see it as much. I mean, you do get directors of swimming now, so obviously they're more in that kind of higher role, and then you have like your head coaches and things. And I guess that's probably a more of a subtle way of doing it. But yeah, I don't necessarily see like a technical advisor coming in, of somebody of his stature coming to just a small town club in Stratford. So yeah, I was very lucky, and very grateful for it to happen really. So
good. You mentioned that, like, one of the things you were looking at between you and Ian was and you said to Amy it was like shifting culture, and you thought it would take a year. Now, in my mind, a year 12 months seems like a long time, which is obviously what you initially thought. But 2 to 3 years, what were those changes in culture you were trying to make, and why would it take so long to change that shift?
I think a lot of it is a lot of people's mindsets, because I think when you come into a program, obviously you want to make your mark and you want to kind of do the things your own way and whatever. And I think what I found was I do coach very differently to the previous head coaches, which is not a problem. But I think a lot of it is people's perception of things. So because it's been done a certain way for a long time, it's very difficult sometimes to change people's mindset of, actually, we're doing it this way. It is different to what we've done previously, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. And I think it takes a long time to kind of change, as I say, people's mindsets. And don't get me wrong, during the year and during the 2 years, I've had issues with coaches, I had issues with swimmers, I had issues with parents, you know, I had the full shebang really. And a lot of it is that I knew that I was doing the right thing, because my results were showing me that. And with Ian and obviously other coaches that I'd started networking with, and I'd kind of found out what they were doing, and, you know, I was absolutely 100% knew I was doing the right thing. And it's difficult to kind of ignore people that are being a bit difficult in terms of trying to allow you to kind of move forward a bit. But I think consistency is the key. I think communication's really important. And don't get me wrong, it's something I'm still trying to develop now, communication. It's always a difficult one. So I think, communication, fairness. So in terms of Stratford, we are a charity. So if I make any decisions within the club, I have to make sure that it's it's equal to everybody. Financially, it's okay. So there's a couple of tick boxes, I guess, that I have to go through before I make any decision or I approach the trustees about it. And I think it's just, a lot of positive praise as well, because I think as soon as we started seeing the results, it was like saying to my swimmers, look, you can do this. It's absolutely fine. You've just got to have some faith in yourself, and you've got to kind of keep with your training and keep up with the belief that you can be the best you can. I mean, what we did was we obviously aligned all our criteria, and we aligned all our kind of sessions, which made it in our kind of setup, it made it a little bit more performance based in terms of the culture, the mindset, nutrition and stuff like that, which I think really helped, because other clubs were doing it. It wasn't just kind of on a whim. But yeah, it did take some time, and I still don't really feel like we're just there yet, if I'm honest. But obviously with lockdown, the good thing about lockdown is it's a new start for everybody. And I think, if you had a few issues, training or whatever before, I think it's really important to not like jump the boat quickly. So not like move a club quickly because you think it's going to be better for you. I think it's something that you need to just kind of get back into swimming in an environment that that's comfortable, because it's going to be stressful anyway for everybody, those first couple of sessions. So that's kind of how we went in terms of changing that culture and that mindset. And it took some time, and
so
it felt like a bit like a swamp.
So it kind of like changes across the board then. What you were doing in the pool, the training sets and things, that was, and it was always attitude to like competition, nutrition, it was all over changes.
We kind of went in for the full shebang. We kind of did everything. We thought, if we're going to change it, we might as well change everything at once, which it's probably in hindsight it's probably not a thing that you do, but I think everything marries up. So if you got the training right, then the mindset would be right, and then a competition would be right, and then it would kind of all be part of the puzzle. And then potentially that would then allow the athlete to be the best that they can. But it took a time, and I did find that there was a lot of resistance at times when I did kind of have to put things in place and stuff like that. But it was just great to have him there to be like, no, we're doing the right thing. This is how we do it. And obviously the results, married up with that. So yeah,
definitely. I mean, I do like that what you said about you knew obviously you were getting some resistance here and there, which is given. That's going to happen because as humans, we don't like change necessarily. So,
no, oh my God, no.
Sit with what you're comfortable with very often, and it's a challenge to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, and that's kind of what this is for the athletes and maybe the parents and everything as well. But
sure.
You said about you confident in what you were doing. You kind of had your philosophies and your ways of doing things set, and what you wanted. And I think having been an athlete before, that's definitely what, if you can see that in your coach, it creates trust. So you
definitely
them and go with what it is that they're doing. I think if you come in and you're a little bit unsure of what you're trying to change and why you're trying to change it, then that's different. Feel a bit
definitely.
This is a bit rocky, but
definitely.
If you had that confidence to know what your principles were, then I think that really, really helps. But I mean, obviously being part of the club, being the head coach of the club, creating sort of like a happy, relaxed, supportive environment where athletes can thrive is so important. And it can be a bit of a balancing act at times. Obviously, a lot of clubs have your coaching team, and you have maybe a committee, a lot of which can be voluntary members in many clubs in Britain. And obviously life would be boring if everyone had the same opinion. So sometimes opinions can clash about what's best for the club and what's best for the swimmers. Your interests are always going to be to have the swimmers be the best they can be. I mean, as head coach, how do you ensure, because from the outside it looks to us like Sharks runs nice and smoothly, so how do you ensure that happens as a head coach?
I think, well, it hasn't always ran smoothly in terms of, various things, like most organisations and most clubs really. I think having people around you that are supportive and that that can see that you're trying your best and that have knowledge prior. So I was really lucky that I had a lot of my trustees that had been in the club a while, and they'd seen, like, they'd been through different head coaches. So it was really helpful having somebody, you know, as kind of a bit of guidance of kind of like, right, this is what you need to do. This is when, you know, something really simple things like, you know, don't send loads of emails out in one day because parents can't, you know, can't read them all. So it's kind of really silly little things like that to be kind of a bit more business-like, I suppose. I mean, for me, I've always been quite supportive and try and be as relaxed as I can coach, because I think that is the best way to be, because potentially I know if I start getting stressed, they're going to pick up on it, and then potentially that's going to be a nightmare. But I think a lot of my teaching training has kind of helped me do that, with having to deal with pupils at school and things. But I think having a great committee and having a great, like, volunteers, like, around me supporting me is probably the best thing that I've ever had. I think if I didn't have a supportive, like, trustees or committee, then it wouldn't work. Yeah. And they pretty much were happy for me and Ian to just go with it, and we would say, this is what we need to do, this is why we need to do it, and this is what, and obviously the results started coming, it became, you know, a little bit kind of a bit more relaxed and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, you know, I'm sure we've had parents before that have disagreed with what we've done, and swimmers and things like that, but I think for me it's having support there. Because I remember when I first met with Ian in a meeting, it did shock me a little bit, because I was like, oh my god, but he said you need to make sure that you've got supportive people around you, you've got to make sure that you've got those trusted people that you can go and get advice from. So every decision that I made in the club, I'd probably spoken to 2 or 3 people prior to that, and there was a thought process behind it as well. And obviously some things I was like, no, I don't need your advice on that, I'm going to go with it because I know that was the right thing. But there were some times where it was important just to get a bit more advice from a range of people, just to double check, really. But it is difficult when you have volunteers and you have, because as a head coach, you're kind of in the middle, then you've got your swimmers, you've got your parents, you've got your trustees, you've got your committees. You're kind of like having to manage like 5 or 4 sets of groups, really. And everyone kind of wants you, and, you know, you're pulling from pillar to post, and, you know, and it is very difficult to have that. But one sense, having a mentor was really good, because they just brought you back in line and said, right, no, we don't need to worry about that at the moment, because that's not necessarily urgent enough to deal with, but you've got to deal with this. So it was kind of just prioritizing things as well. And I think for me, what I always said, and I still stick by this, is that, you know, if I want my swimmers to turn up and train and on time, then I need to be on time, and I need to show from I need to kind of lead from example. And that was also another thing that I was like, right, this is what we're doing, and I'll be there. And I felt like in that first year, I obviously probably, you know, I know swim coaching for me is part-time, that's my job, but obviously it's never part-time, is it? So it was kind of like full-time that year, because it was just like, oh gosh. But I think it's definitely set us up for the future, hopefully. And when we get back in after lockdown, we'll have to start again. But we're not starting from ground zero, if that makes sense. We're kind of a bit further along. So hopefully that's answered your question a little bit, Amy. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool, that's great.
What would you say? Cause I think all clubs have a different feel, a different atmosphere. Obviously, a lot of what we do is visiting different places, and they've all got, like I say, atmosphere and feel, and maybe different goals. Like, you know, they're all aiming different. Everyone wants to swim fast. That's kind of a given. Their process of how they get there, whether they're more about pure performance or whether they're more about being supportive, or all these different
like
things.
Holistic type stuff.
Yeah, some are a little bit more holistic. You can feel that sense that, and someone just openly tell you. It's great, because obviously athletes respond to different coaching styles everywhere they go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like what would you? Can you articulate like how you what yours would be for Sharks? Like what would the philosophies of the club be? Have you ever thought
Yeah.
of those terms?
Yeah, I think for me was just adding in belief to the swimmers.
Right.
So like I always knew they could swim fast, and I always knew they could swim, you know, faster than what they're currently doing, but they just didn't believe it themselves.
Right.
And it was trying to instill like the belief in them, and also, as you say, going for that holistic approach. So I'm all about kind of mental well-being and kind of physical well-being as well, and just kind of developing these swimmers to be the best they can, regardless if that's county, regional, nationals, whatever that is, but also set them up for life as well. So there's like loads of skills, isn't there, that you can get from swimming, so like organisation, social skills, like all those types of things. And I think because I was a teacher, I think I've always had that mindset of, you know, I see these swimmers for 1 or 2 hours in that session, probably 8, 9, 10 times a week. So you do become, you know, you do sometimes speak to them a lot more than their parents, you know, it's just what it is, because I work with teenagers, so they never speak to their parents, do they? Maybe some do, maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but I think, you know, you have to go in with the mind of, you know, you are a role model to them. And if, you know, for me, even if that is just setting somebody up to go to university like Loughborough, you know, then I've done my job, and that is the only thing that I can kind of, you know, work on really.
Yeah.
But I think as well, because I obviously when I was a swimmer myself, it was quite negative at times. I kind of said to myself, I'd never be that coach. I'd never be that coach that was at the end of the lane shouting or whatever. I never would be it. Like if I shout, it's for a valid reason, kind of thing. And I think swimmers and athletes, you know, if they feel comfortable and they feel supported and they trust you, they'll do anything for you. They will literally just do anything. And that's something that I try and instill in the club, and hopefully the swimmers feel supported, and, you know, and stuff like that. And yeah, that's kind of how I go really with it. And, you know, it's something that, you know, it's always, you can't please everybody, and you're never going to, and that's just generally is life. But I think as long as you can say, right, I've done my best for that swimmer, I did what I could, then at least then there's no regret there, or there's no kind of animosity or anything like that really. That's what we try.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to hear what you guys think about us, because obviously you've seen like loads of different clubs, haven't you? So
yeah, no, I mean, well, that is probably the feel I would get from you guys. And I can't imagine you being a particularly shouty kind of screaming in the face kind of coach. I imagine if they really ticked you off, you're more of that like, I'm just disappointed kind of.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
One of them.
Yeah, that's the word. That's it. It'll just kill him every time, won't it? That's it. Definitely. Yeah, I am. I try to. Yeah, definitely. I'll be using that one. If they're not getting in the pool at the weekend, Joe, I'll use that one.
There's always where your mum would say that to you when you're, oh no, I'd rather you just shout at me.
Yeah, definitely.
I've got to go away and feel bad for ages.
yeah, and I make him feel bad. Don't get me wrong. I make them feel bad if they've done something. I'm like, you know. So, but they are. To be honest with you, they are great. I'm very fortunate to have some really great swimmers, and I think that is half the battle, really. Because I think that if it gets to the point where that's not the case, where you know the swimmer just isn't enjoying it, then you know I think it's a time to say, well, there's plenty of other clubs to go and see, and you know, and it's important to just go and have a look what's out there, but obviously do it in the right way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like we've said on some other podcasts, isn't it? They've got to want to do it themselves and take ownership
absolutely
doing. And if they're not really wanting to do it, there's no point in you as a coach trying to force them to do it, which are all that, you know, disappointed and like all annoyed comes in. You shouldn't have to be trying to make them do stuff, because really being part of a competitive swimming club, you should be there hopefully because you want to be, and you want to be better.
Absolutely. I mean, because you know, I could write anything on the board, but if the swimmer hasn't got the drive, hasn't got, you know, the focus, you know, as a coach you can only do so much. And I think, you know, the onus has to be on that swimmer, because potentially they're the ones that are going to walk behind the block, you know, no one's holding their hand or anything like that. And I think that's a really important thing, particularly when when you're coming into it and you're kind of you know, kind of the age group level and stuff like that, it's starting to become a bit more independent. And I think it's also important, and I say this all the time as well, is that you've obviously got the athlete, coach and parent triangle, which is so important, because if everyone's on the same page, that athlete will be absolutely fantastic. And if the roles kind of get blurred, which they can do sometimes, because obviously we all know, how it is, it's the athlete that's going to suffer, because that athlete is the one that's going to be quite anxious when they go behind the blocks, because they'll think, hang on a minute, my parents are saying, or my guardian, whoever's looking after me, they're saying one thing. Oh my God, the coach is saying another thing. What am I going to do? Because I'm going to upset somebody here. Yeah. And I think I would just never want to put a child in that situation to feel anxious going behind the blocks.
Yeah.
So I always say, like on the county programs, I always say, parents, you have your role, absolutely have your valid role. It's a very important role you have, but you're kind of more the emotional support side, and the coach is the tactical and technical side. And it shouldn't blur, because as you say, that athlete is the one that's going to suffer, and they'll get quite anxious and stuff like that. But hopefully, as we go back to the pool, there's no open meets anyway, so hopefully people can get back in and just start enjoying the sport again, because I think we've got a massive responsibility of actually just getting the sport back, regardless of any competitions or anything like that. I think it's like a wider thing that we've got to try and focus and work hard to get back to where we were, or the new norm, as they say.
Yeah. Oh, well, bring on Saturday for you guys.
I know. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Times. Yeah.
I just hope they don't die. Like, I hope they can do 50 meters. Like, I'm just debating, are they going to be able to do it? But we'll see. I'll let you know. I'll count them in and count them out, and hopefully it's the same number.
Head counts every 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I'm sure
definitely.
they'll be great, and they're just being back in and getting the feel.
Yeah.
I mean, it will feel weird, and for a while, I think that's kind of what they need to understand, isn't it? It's not just going to
absolutely
back into feeling right and normal again. It will take a while. But that time is your opportunity to maybe correct some of the things that you were struggling to correct last season, because it's kind of like all your neurological systems have kind of flattened out again, and you get to rebuild them. So
absolutely, yeah, definitely.
In time in that respect, I think. But slight tangent, we go off in a slightly different direction. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is coaching, swimming coaching, and I feel like maybe in a lot of other sports as well, it appears to be quite a male dominant sort of career path to take, not in any negative way or anything like that, but it just appears to be that way. I mean, do you sort of have an opinion as to why that might be with you being in the career yourself, or do you find that there's an advantage to being a female as a swimming coach as well?
So when I did my MSc, we have to end obviously with a thesis, and I actually looked at this as one of my main project, really. I know, great question, hey guys. And a lot of it was, so a lot of the participants that I used, they basically talked about like the life work balance. So being a coach, you're basically, whether you are or whether you're not, most of the time you're kind of accessible 24 hours a day. Like, people email you like 11 o'clock at night and expect an email straight back. It's that kind of thing, and it's a very complex environment, a lot of emotion, a lot of stresses, a lot of kind of achievements and things like that. So I think a lot of it is the work-life balance, so like having families, and it's that traditional thing of people want families, and then therefore as a female role, sometimes you have to obviously do a bit more or less or whatever, and that's probably a difficult area. The lack of role models came up. I mean, I did my thesis in 2016, and obviously there's a lot more females around now, and even on poolside you can see a lot more females, not necessarily in head coach positions, but in just around, which is fantastic to see in any sport. So I think role models is probably one thing as well, not having someone to kind of look up to and things like that. Obviously we've got Mel Marshall and Lisa Bates and people like that obviously have made significant progress in their careers and things, which is fantastic. But I think that's got a lot to do with it. And I also think the research came out was a lot of females that had been on poolside, they'd always had an issue with a male coach, like whether that had been very dogmatic or whether that had been kind of insulting or anything like that, and it just literally put them off, and potentially or not put them off, but it kind of made them a little bit more cautious and things like that. And I guess it's kind of breaking down the ceiling, isn't it? And saying, actually, it's a good thing to have a female coach on poolside and a male coach on poolside, because male and females, we do think differently, we do act differently, and it's just the world, really. And I think having a female coach, I suppose I'm more, not mothering, because that's the wrong word to use, but I'm more of kind of like reassurance and kind of just making sure that everyone's supported. And I probably do it a little bit more than I should on some things, but I think sometimes people react better with females, sometimes they react better with males. It just depends kind of how you work with it. But yeah, so that's kind of what the research was. But there was some really positive stuff coming through in terms of like coach education. I know that you have the female coaching network that was set up a couple of years back that is obviously primarily for female coaches, and they do present quite a lot of role models on there, like different sports like football, baseball, like American, like loads of different things. But I think it has definitely changed as it's gone over the years. Like I definitely see there's a lot more females. I particularly, and I haven't gone out particularly and done this, but my club has actually got a lot of female coaches in it. It's probably in the county, it's probably got more female coaches in it than anything really. But in a sense, that does have its own negative as well, that they probably have a lot more to balance in terms of like family life and other things and stuff like that. I mean, guys do as well, but I do notice that females obviously have more of a time with that side of it, and that might be because of society, it might be just my opinion, but it's kind of what I've seen and I've researched and stuff like that, really. So
okay,
it's a very interesting thesis. So
it is, yeah. And obviously there's no right way, there's no wrong way at all, like
no.
The way it is at the minute. But how do you feel on poolside? Say you go to meets and like you've been head coach of the pathway team and everything like that.
Yeah.
I presume heading up a group with a lot of male coaches in there as well. How do you feel kind of being on poolside? Does it make you feel kind of really proud that you've sort of achieved those roles and kind of you are in those positions, and really kind of proud to be in quite a male dominant kind of career? How does it feel?
Yeah, I think when I first started, when I was a lot younger, I found it quite hard because there generally wasn't anyone around then, and you would often get ignored. You'd often kind of you just wouldn't be kind of felt like you were welcome or anything. But as society's moved on and more females are around and things like that, it is really empowering actually to go and, as you say, be on these teams and be on like the head coach of the county, and be recognised for staying there and getting through that, and actually not budging and saying, actually, I have every right to be here myself just because I'm female. But it's also really good because I find that working with any coach, female or male, I think if you know your stuff, I think it's a lot easier. I think if you didn't know your stuff and you were trying to tell somebody something, then they probably wouldn't be kind of going with you on your kind of ethos or whatever you've got. So I think as long as you know your stuff and you're trying to support everybody, I think it makes life a lot easier. But definitely I think it's great actually. And when I go on poolside now, I do look out for just female coaches, and I think, oh, brilliant, well done, fantastic, you've got there. But also in my thesis, it was a lot of the younger, so the majority, the minority were females, and young coaches, like young male coaches, were kind of the two areas where felt like they needed some more support. So it's really great to see like young coaches, like male and female, also being on poolside, because they're the next generation, aren't they? And they're the ones that need to be supported. So yeah, Amy, I feel very, very proud to be on poolside, definitely. So
Cool. So once you hit the water on Saturday,
Yes.
what are you going to be doing? What's the plan? What's the plan of action for
Oh,
getting in and
oh, yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, I think like 20 meters and climb out and go home. I think that's probably what I'm going to do. No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So I think what we've done is we've taken a lot of guidance from Swim England, and I have also, throughout the years, I've kind of got to know different coaches and things like that. So I've kind of seeked out what they're doing, because I know a lot of the coaches are already back in the pool, and also just give them a bit of an idea of kind of what they're doing and kind of what works. I think for me, the guidance has said like low aerobic stuff. So obviously not like 800 and that, you're not going to swim for the whole hour. You're going to have a little bit of break as you go, but it's just making sure the heart rate doesn't come up too quickly or too high. And I'm going to want to put a bit of kick in there, and just basically get back to basics and do some drills and just a lot of sculling so they can feel the water, preferably with snorkels on that one. I'm a bit reluctant to bring pull in, I think, at the moment, just because I'm a bit concerned about the shoulders and stuff. But I think we're just going to have to gradually bring it in, particularly for the first month, and then start bringing in a bit of speed work, just to kind of like periodically in the sessions, just to kind of fire up a little bit if we can. Even if they can just do like one of like 25 meters, I'd be happy. But I think it is literally going to be like a suck it and see kind of thing, and just take one session at a time. And I think one thing I've said to my coaches, and I have put out to my swimmers as well, I've got someone else to do it actually, is, you know, if a swimmer turns up and it's just not working for them, or they're really struggling, it's okay to just leave the session and start again the next session. Like if half an hour is good for you and that's all you've got in the tank on that day, then that's fine. You just climb out and you try the next day. And it's not to say that you're bad, it's just that at that moment in time your body can't give anything else. So I think that's really important, because I think a lot of people are probably going to be a little bit nervous, some excitement as well, of course, to get back in the pool, which is brilliant. But I think it's just important just to maybe focus on the process. Don't worry about times. Don't, like you said, Amy, don't think about where you were last season, because it's a new start for everybody. And who knows, you might even be, 20 million times better than last season. It's just, I think, giving yourself a bit of time and being a bit kind to yourself, and think, right, I can do 15 minutes today or whatever it is, and just not have that pressure on you. Because I think as soon as that pressure goes on you, it's very difficult to kind of focus and then even, try your best and stuff. So I think that's a bit of advice that I'm going to be I will be putting through to my swimmers. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting on Saturday for sure, because we're outside in like cold weather, so we might as well start it as we mean to go on. But I think, it's just going to be one step at a time, and obviously just taking guidance from what Swim England recommend and stuff like that, really. So I'll let you know how it goes.
I mean, expect the DOMs, I think, is one thing.
Oh my God,
you'll have some soreness regardless.
Oh yeah.
To do it at home, swimming is totally different, really. So, will you ask them to sort of, or encourage them to keep going with their land work? I'm guessing you can't come together to do land work yet still, so will you encourage them to keep doing bits at home?
Definitely. So what we've been doing is we've been doing a workout for each week. So obviously I've been furloughed, so I can't potentially send this information out and stuff, but I've had great help on sending out that information. So every week from week 1 up to week 20 now, or something, can't think. Oh my God, it might be a week.
I'm lost.
I know, I'm lost as well. What day is it? Basically, so from week 1 up until now, they've had land workouts, and obviously there's got to be a bit of trust there from the coach and the swimmer to do them. And obviously I know I have some swimmers that go on cycle, they're triathletes, so they're fine. So what I think we still need to do is obviously keep that in, because potentially with the time slots we've got and that as well, I think that's probably going to really help kind of keep their fitness level up to a point, because I appreciate land and pool fitness is very different. And also there's instructions of like mobility work there and stretching and stuff like that. So for us, the swimmers are going to have to do pre and post pool stretches off poolside because they can't be kind of in the area. So that again, that hopefully it will be a good thing because they'll be able to develop their independence. They'll be able to kind of develop their focus and hopefully stop the DOMs from coming as well. But I think the important thing is to kind of realise it's not going to be the same as it was before lockdown, and just try your best to go with the flow as much as you can, and just kind of see how it goes, really.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of scrapping periodization for now. There's no competitions to worry about. Just get the love of water back. And
absolutely.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. And then hopefully as time goes on and we're all, it's getting a bit better, then hopefully we'll be able to add some more pool time in, and then we'll be able to do land work, because I believe you can do land work outside, but it's different between adults and children. But potentially we don't have massive amount of space to kind of do that as well. So it's kind of just, I guess, trying to look at it for safety is kind of our first priority at the moment. And just getting the love for the water back as well. And and there might be some swimmers that come back and think, actually this just isn't right for me, and I just I thought I wanted to come back and I didn't. And and I think it's a new start for everybody, and and hopefully everybody starts with a fresh positive and supportive as much as they can, really.
Yes.
I mean, I know there's even some coaches that are sort of nervous about going back and think that they don't really want to go back onto deck until they can just start as they were, just carry as normal was. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And what would you say to coaches that they're maybe, like you just mentioned, swimmers might be nervous. What about coaches being nervous and not being able to perform the job in the typical? Like, it's all just brand new? What we're thinking?
Yeah, I think for me, like one thing I learned as a teacher is that you've got to be adaptable. Because there were times when obviously I planned a lesson and it was raining, so we had to come in and you had to literally think on your feet and think, oh my gosh, right, okay, I'm just going to do this. So I think being adaptable is probably the best thing I would recommend. But also I think having some time to reflect as well. So, and I'm going to be really open with my swimmers. I'm going to say, right, I've planned a set. I have no idea how it's going to go, but I might need to change as we go. And if we do, it's not a problem. Because I find that being honest with them, like being honest, is such a good thing, because potentially then they know that actually whatever decision you make is the best for them.
Yeah.
So I've already mentioned to my coaches, let's keep the warm up this, whatever set you've planned, let's keep the warm up the same so the swimmers know what that warm up is. And then after that, if we need to adapt it, we can. But I think it's going to be not being rigid and thinking it's okay to change. Yeah. And I think maybe trying new things is probably something to kind of look at, because potentially we're all starting from the same point in a sense.
Yeah.
But I think being adaptable, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm in my head now, I'm thinking about how the social distancing is going to work and things like that. But most clubs should have a COVID officer, and that COVID officer is obviously, that's their job to kind of just make sure all that side is sorted. So you don't necessarily need to have that pressure all the time of thinking about where the kids are and things. But I think try and plan as much as you can, or have a rough idea of what you're trying to get to the point of.
Yeah.
And I think it's just going to have to be one session at a time. And talk to other people, I think, because there are some fantastic coaches out there that are so willing to pass on knowledge and so willing to say, like, oh my gosh, I tried this, it certainly didn't work, you try it. But I think having your athletes come with you, and also obviously you don't want to, it's like a power relationship. So as much as you want to be in control of the session and in control of like everything that happens, it's not going to be like that, because it's very social, complex. It never happens the way you plan it. Like, I have never done a session, even when I was a teacher, I never did a session where it went exactly the way that I planned it, because it just doesn't. So I think having the opportunity to speak to the swimmers obviously if you've got older swimmers, if you've got like juniors and things like that, it probably might not be as easy to do that, but you know, because they might also have some advice as well. And I think giving them the opportunity to have a bit of choice in their sessions gives them a little bit of ownership of, right, I'm going to try a bit of backstroke now, I'm going to try a bit of breaststroke, and then building that trust up and that bond is really important. But I think it is going to literally be one session at a time, or maybe maybe 5 minutes at a time, maybe for me at the moment. I don't know, but yeah, I'll let you know if my session plan is anything like I planned it, but we'll see. But yeah, I think it is going out into the unknown, isn't it? And I think until you're out in it and you've started that one session, I think as it goes on, it will get easier. And I think it's just, as long as you've got support there and you've got people to talk to, and I kind of think don't be scared if you get it wrong, because you're like, you know what, I tried it didn't work, I'm not going to be doing that again. You know, because otherwise if you don't try it, you're never going to know, really. So hopefully that helps somebody.
Yeah, definitely. And with no pressure of competition coming up anytime soon either, that takes that side of it away. So you're not trying for something and thinking, I need to get this in, I need to get that in.
Yeah,
it's like taking a bit of guidance from them of what they feel they need at that time, and trying to work around that as best possible, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
A small, well, not even small, but like age group level clubs predominantly. Like Amy said, there's probably even less pressure. Whereas I guess if you're in a senior program and you're aiming for Tokyo 21,
I know.
Time frame a little bit more.
Yeah.
I guess if you haven't got that time frame to worry about. Do you put any plans in your head of like, I want them this place by October, I want them to be at this kind of shape by Christmas, heading to the new year, we're just going to be back onto it, or is that just not possible to do?
I think for me, it's so as you say, there's no open meets or anything. So I think it's a great time to like think of the process. So think of like your streamlining, think of your fly leg kicks, think about not breathing off your turns and things like that. I think if I can get everybody in that mindset and be like, right, when we are focusing on the process, because that's still a focus, because I think some swimmers might struggle with the fact that they don't have any open meets and they'll just think, what's the point in training? I say, yeah, but you've got to go through the process in order to get the end goal, so to speak, you know, if that's an open meet. And I think for me, I would hope, because obviously August is always difficult as well, isn't it? Because everyone's going on holiday, or maybe not at the moment.
Quarantining.
Quarantine. Yeah, absolutely. I have got some actually coming back quarantining for 2 weeks in a bit. But I think I think for me, ordinarily, I would have said, right, I need to bring speed work in quite quickly, and I want their speed to be in kind of around October time, in readiness for like Midlands or Midlands short course, or because we obviously had the county window as well, but obviously that's completely gone out now. So for me, I think it's very difficult to kind of come up with what I would expect. I would expect October, about 6-8 weeks, for them to be reasonably comfortable for me to start bringing in stuff. But obviously that means have they trained enough to get up to that point as well, because we've only got so many hours. So I think it's kind of, again, it's kind of seeing what they're doing. I know I've spoken to a couple of other coaches that they're going to bring in speed work kind of around October time and stuff like that. And I think Swim England are also going to bring some extra stuff in to say, right, now try this and this and this. But I think it all is on the amount of pool time that you have. And obviously if that swimmer also is consistently coming as well as doing their land training work, I think it's going to have to be a lot of communication and a lot of trust. And to be honest with you, you're going to see in the pool, aren't you? Like if someone hasn't done anything at all over lockdown, it's going to be obvious, isn't it? But you know, but it's trying to just encourage them to say, right, it's now, you got to start, because it's just going to be uncomfortable for you to watch and for them to do it as well. You know what I mean? So I'll be thinking, well, it will, because you just think, oh gosh, this is just not working. And I just wouldn't want to put any swimmer in that situation where they would just feel uncomfortable. But at some point you've got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, haven't you? And you've just got to go for it. And Yeah, so I think that's a tough question, Joe. I think I might have to get back to you on that one. I think I'll just let you know when I bring in some stuff. But yeah, I think it's it'll be interesting times. That's for sure. Interesting.
Yeah,
So,
I do like what you said about focusing on even right back down to basics like streamlining off the wall and not breathing out of turns and stuff. And as you know, that's a big thing of ours. We love the technique side of
you do. You so do.
That is kind of what we like to do.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like that is your foundation. That's your base.
Yeah.
And you can't start building speed and stuff in my opinion until you've got that base right. Otherwise, you can only go so far. If you add
absolutely
theology to it, then it only takes you so far. But if you've got the efficiency and the skills in the water, that's where it's going to enable you to get more out of your speed and everything else when it gets to it. So I feel like,
definitely,
in respect, is a great opportunity to go back to those basics, because very often I think a lot of swimmers, like athletes in general, that you've done it for years, swimming, people tend to start from when they're really young. You think, oh, I've done all that, I've done all the basics, so I want to do it. And it's really not the case. It's something like we would keep coming back to all the time in our training, doing those drills, focusing on those skills, trying to keep improving the basics, like the tightness of your streamline, whether you can get that extra kick in, or, just the breakouts, all of that, we'd still be focusing on that. And I think this is just a great opportunity for them to go back to those basics if they don't normally anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because another worry is, and it sounds really stupid, is that whether people can actually get in a streamlined position, because if they haven't done that position for like 4 or 5 months, their muscles are going to feel very uncomfortable. So I think it is basically starting from a, as you say, like starting again. And if you can get those things right, then that is what's going to make you go faster, not the the amount of times. Because I remember Ian always saying, if you had like 12 hours in the pool, fine, but if you've only got 6, it's what you do in those hours rather than the hours that you've got. And it's the same for the athletes. It's like if you turn up for a session that's an hour and you're just plodding along and you're just doing it just to do it, but not necessarily get anything out of it, then it's a bit of a waste of time. But I think the one thing that I was bringing into my coaches last season and to the athletes is, let's say you are feeling a little bit uncomfortable in the streamlined position, see if you can do it for maybe 10 minutes of the session and then carry on with the rest of it, and then the next session build it up, so then do it for 15 minutes and build it up. So don't feel like you've got to go in your first session and do streamlining for the whole time, or whatever your drill is. It's kind of just building up gradually and being consistent about it so that you can actually progress it on as well.
Yeah, I think that's generally a good way of thinking of goals that you set yourself, because
absolutely,
wanting to go into a session and think I need to do this the whole session from today onwards, like that's quite a big,
it doesn't happen.
No, and I like to kind of, like you said, do incremental and maybe a bit at the start and a bit at the end, so you get your muscle memory for leaving.
Absolutely.
Well, so you finish on a high note sort of thing. So when
definitely,
which you'll feel definitely getting back in, where they feel fatigued even after half an hour of swimming, maybe. Yeah, great way to look at it, and really appreciate you talking to us today, Kim. And I think
it's fine.
Really good things in there that will help a lot of coaches kind of feel more confident getting back in the water. So thank you so much. It was lovely to speak to you.
Oh, and you guys. Now I'm so glad you're well also, and I'll let you know how my session goes at the weekend.
Yeah.
Yes, do.
Fingers crossed for you, Kim. I'm sure everyone will get in and get the same numbers.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, definitely. And I think it'll just be a relief, won't it, just to feel the water and just get on with it. So, but thank you so much for asking me to obviously come on today, and hopefully what I've said is some use to somebody. So
definitely.
I'm sure it will be.
Thank you so much. Fingers crossed for the weather means you're outdoors as well.
I know, yeah. I'll bring my umbrella just in case.
See you soon, Kim.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks to Kim for speaking with us today, and thanks to you guys for listening too. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.